Embiid did not play in the first two games of this series because of a concussion and a right orbital fracture. Really up until the final moments before the start of this game, it was up in the air. What a lift for Philadelphia as they try and get on the board in this series.
Great news for Philly. Great news for basketball fans.
Embiid got a running start and just juked right around Dedmon.
And he flushed it with authority with the bad thumb.
Just his presence, obviously, to start the game, his energy, his rebounding, his ability at the basket. I don't think he gets enough credit how good of a defensive player he is and how much he helps us. And I thought tonight it was a lot of that.
Joel one-on-one with Adebayo. Adebayo reaches. Joel shoots it in from the wing, up and good. But that jumper, a good sign. Joel puts it in. Sixers by 9. Embiid with 9.
Embiid, able to snake his way to the rim. Plus the foul.
You know, we needed him, and he showed up. He delivered. Like I said before, it's not about, him scoring 30 or 40 points. It's about his presence, and his presence alone gives us that energy. His dominance is very important to this team.
He's a huge factor, even when he's not scoring. Like I said, defensively, rebounding.
It was just good to see him out there, and not just for our team, for himself personally. He put so much into this season. The work that he's put in, his body of work, demonstrates why he should be the MVP. And for him to be able to play in the second round of the playoffs in a big moment like this and go out there and play well, it's been great.
Embiid, a lot of contact with Adebayo. Counting to go, plus the foul.
You add Joe to any team, home or away, the game, the scout report, it changes drastically. He's been like that for his entire career.
Yeah, he's a big impact. This is what you have to expect. He's an MVP caliber player. He's also, usually in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. We'll just have to figure it out.
Philadelphia is on the board in the conference semifinals. The Sixers take game 3. Joel Embiid playing in his first game of the series, returning from injury, battling through existing injury. 18 points, 11 rebounds.
Down 2-0, I had to do really everything possible to be out there, no matter really how much I was feeling. Obviously, we gotta stay healthy, and we all gotta play well at the same time. We all gotta be damn near perfect. So to me, that's what I signed up for, and whatever is gonna take me to win, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, the masked man didn't dominate the way we've seen him dominate before, but he changed the equation on both ends of the floor for the Sixers in their win over Miami. Heat's lead is now down to 2-1 with Game 4 tomorrow night. How did Philly benefit most from Embiid's presence on the floor?
Thank you, Matt. Presence. Sometimes people don't understand it's that simple. When you're on the floor, we talk about shooters creating space. Well, his presence created everything, meaning that he's on the floor. When he touches the ball, everybody has to look for him. He shared the ball, found his guys. We talked about earlier, Maxey got going in the second half. That Euro step right there, that's Embiid. The points, I wasn't worried about. The fact that when he walked in that building, he was warming up. You saw the crowd. You heard about the energy in the building picked up because the big fella was there. Defensively, guys drove. They saw him. They made extra passes. So the presence of him being there, I think, got the guys over the hump, and it spread throughout the team.
Bam Adebayo, 2 of 9.
Presence.
With Embiid on the floor. Miami couldn't hit threes. They couldn't do a lot of what they've done offensively. What happens now for the Heat? What's the adjustment with Embiid presumably back for the rest of the series?
Well, you're going to manage if Embiid's starting the ball game and he's attacking early, you got to get the ball out of his hands. And then also, too, Matt, the backside of Miami's defense. I'm sure Coach Spo's like, guys, we didn't rotate like we normally do.
Right.
We give it Maxey credit, but maybe 3 or 4 of those threes, Matt. Max is over here licking his chops like, hey, man, I'm wide open.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Coach Spo and his coaching staff is going to call that out, that, guys, our rotations have to be better on the weak side of the floor when they do share the basketball.
Well, and your player rotation is going to change as well because Embiid draws fouls. Miami does not have a lot of big, burly-type defenders. Hardly anybody in the league does to match up with him.
So when you saw Dedmon getting out the way in that Euro step, that's when Embiid said, oh, you don't want any of this smoke, as the guys like to say. So he kept attacking. But one thing we love about Embiid, he's willing to share the basketball when they do double team. So that's why Miami's defense has to move.
Getting in front of Embiid when he's on the move may be a good basketball decision in some circumstances. It's not a great life decision.
It's not a good business decision because you're going to be hurt in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. I feel about giving up those shots moving forward.
They absolutely love it. If John Morant wants to settle for threes, particularly long threes, they're going to live with that. If he's going to make them, that's going to be okay. The issue for the Warriors is John Morant navigating and getting into the paint. Remember, John Morant led the league in point paints this year as a 6'2" point guard, which is outstanding. So the Warriors are now going to really have to adjust their game plan without Gary Payton, who, remember, for most of the year was coming off the bench. For all of the Denver series was coming off the bench. And then when they needed a defensive specialist, a stopper, they put him in the starting lineup the first 2 games. So the adjustment that's going to be made starting tonight in the next few hours when we find out the starting lineup is going to indicate how the Warriors feel like they could win this series.
Well, that could mean Jordan Poole starting again tonight as opposed to coming back to start the second half. Could mean something else. And you talked with him in that bit of tape we heard a moment ago about his assignments in this series, particularly defensively. What do they feel like they need to keep him on the floor as a starter for the rest of the series if necessary?
Yeah, and I'm not so sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Poole is starting. And one of the biggest reasons is the Warriors are trying to figure out, like, is it a psychological thing? Jordan Poole has been so much better as a starter this year. His numbers, his splits indicate that, than as a player coming off the bench. But they need him to be sound defensively. You know, Steve Kerr has talked about it throughout the year. One of the reasons why Jordan Poole has earned so many minutes and opportunities to shine on offense is because of the growth he has made on defense. And you saw that in the Denver series. And then he got a little undisciplined over the first 2 games of this series, which is why Steve Kerr felt the need to have Gary Payton in the starting lineup. The big thing with Jordan Poole is not fouling. Is making sure he's being disciplined, as I said, and not reaching in. But what I'm intrigued by, Matt, with this series in terms of the starting lineup is that we've talked so much about small ball and how the Warriors have gone to this death lineup. Well, Steve Kerr admitted yesterday that this death lineup that shined against Denver is no longer a lineup he could use for 25 minutes a night. It's going to be much more selective. That being said, with Steven Adams coming tonight, with Steven Adams coming back tonight, do the Warriors say, all right, you have to match up against us and go small ball, or do the Warriors throw Kevon Looney back into the starting lineup and match him up against Steven Adams?
So many questions. There's also a large sample of work to suggest Steph Curry and Klay Thompson won't shoot worse than they did in Game 2, 16 of 44, 5 of 23 from 3. Is there any level of concern about getting those two going?
None whatsoever about Steph Curry. I think there probably would be more with Klay Thompson, but Steve Kerr went out of his way yesterday to say that the shooting woes are not at all related to fatigue due to his multiple injuries that he's coming back from. However, I do want to point this out. Klay Thompson is not on the injury report today for tonight's game. However, Klay Thompson was on the injury report prior to Game 2. And if you watched our broadcast on TNT during Game 2, we showed you what we believe to be the injury where he injured his right knee, the opposite knee from the knee he had the ACL surgery on. I don't think that's leading to the shooting woes, but what is, I think, a cause for concern, and the Warriors won't say this publicly, is Klay coming back from this injury is not up to the defensive standards that he set for himself. And that's why we haven't seen very much of him on John Morant, because he's not the Klay Thompson off the Achilles and the ACL that he was prior to those injuries.
No, clearly, and it would be a lot to ask for him to be that guy after the 2.5-year layoff. Speaking of injuries, Desmond Bane was limited in Game 2 because of the back injury.